The office smelled like money, old leather, mahogany, and the kind of silence you only find in places where people talk about numbers bigger than your future. I sat there in a suit that didn't quite fit, knees bouncing, pretending I belonged. My brothers didn't have to pretend. Roderick leaned back like he owned the building. He probably did, at least part of it. Sterling scrolled on his phone, the way you do when you're already bored of being rich. I was just there, the third son, the one who ran a restaurant instead of a portfolio. When the lawyer walked in, everyone straightened, except me. I couldn't. My father had been gone 3 weeks, and it still didn't feel real. For all his coldness, he was gravity in our lives. When he died, the world felt lighter and wrong at the same time. The lawyer, a stiff man named Calloway, cleared his throat. Mr. Harmon's was straightforward, he said, sliding open a folder thick enough to choke a printer. His company, Data Vault Technologies, and all associated holdings are to be divided equally between Roderick and Sterling Harmon. No surprise. They nodded, already smug. And to his youngest son, Dexter Harmon, Calloway paused, as if the words themselves were beneath him. He leaves. He reached under the table and placed something in front of me, an old, beat-up ThinkPad. Faded keys. A dent on the lid. My brothers burst out laughing. Roderick slapped the table. You've got to be kidding. Sterling smirked. Guess Dad wanted you to finally have something you couldn't screw up in the kitchen. Even Calloway tried to hide a smirk. I stared at the laptop. My heart sank, but I didn't say a word. The lawyer slid a folded note across the table. He asked me to give you this as well. It was handwritten in that familiar, precise scrawl that had once made my childhood spelling tests a living hell. For the one who sees beyond numbers. That was it. No explanation. No warmth. Just another riddle from a man who'd never believed I'd amount to anything. Roderick leaned closer, voice dripping with mock sympathy. Hey, Dex, maybe it's got a secret chili recipe on there. Sterling chuckled. Or maybe it's where he kept your allowance. I wanted to laugh, to act like it didn't sting, but something inside me cracked. I'd spent my whole life trying to prove to that man I wasn't useless, and even in death, he found a way to remind me. Calloway wrapped up the paperwork, sliding sleek folders toward my brothers for signatures. He didn't even bother giving me one. When it was done, they shook his hand like they'd just closed another deal. I stood, clutching the laptop like it might vanish if I didn't. Enjoy your old laptop, Sterling said as they walked past me, his cologne sharp and smug. I forced a smile. Enjoy your empire. He laughed, heading for the elevator. As the doors closed, the laughter echoed in my head, that same sound that had followed me my whole life. I waited until they were gone, then opened the laptop on the table. It powered on, but only to a password screen. Black background, white text, one simple line underneath. Enter password. I tried Harmon. Denied. Data vault. Denied. My birthday. Denied. I sighed and shut it down. When I lifted my head, Calloway was watching me. His expression softened for a fraction of a second, like he wanted to say something but didn't. Mr. Harmon, he said quietly, your father was complicated. Sometimes meaning comes later. I nodded, even though I didn't believe him. Outside, the sky was the color of wet cement. I walked to my car, the ThinkPad under my arm, the note still folded in my pocket, for the one who sees beyond numbers. At the time, I thought it was another jab, a final insult from a man who built empires out of data and couldn't understand a son who built dinners out of love. I didn't know it yet, but that old laptop was worth more than all their millions combined, and it was about to ruin every single one of them. For a while, life went on exactly the way it always had. Quiet, unremarkable, and small. The kind of life you stop noticing while you're living it. Most mornings, I woke before sunrise, drove 20 minutes to Nona's table, and opened the doors to the smell of garlic, coffee, and lemon oil. The place wasn't much. 12 tables, creaky floors, and a neon sign that buzzed loud in the crowd on Friday nights. But it was mine. At least it had been. Dad used to call it a hobby. You don't build legacies with marinara, Dexter, he'd say, swirling a glass of scotch. The kind you can't pronounce without an accent. You build them with innovation, data, scalable vision. I use a nod and say nothing, because the truth was, I liked the smell of sauce on my hands. I liked the sound of laughter over cheap wine. I liked people. He never did. So when the restaurant started to fail, first from rising rent, then from a pandemic no one saw coming, there wasn't anyone to bail me out. My brothers had their own towers to protect. I had unpaid bills, a broken espresso machine, and a landlord who'd stop smiling when I walked in. Every night, I'd count the register and stare at the numbers that didn't add up. Somewhere around week 6 of bleeding cash, I stopped fighting it. That's when I saw it again, the old ThinkPad, sitting on my kitchen table like a relic I couldn't throw away. I carried it home from the lawyer's office, but never turned it on again. It just sat there, collecting dust, the faint outline of my father's fingerprint still visible on the lid. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at it, wondering if there was something more inside, something I missed. But then I'd remember the look on my brothers' faces, that smug certainty, and the thought would die before it reached my hands. I didn't need another reminder of how little I mattered. One night, after closing up the restaurant, I came home to find an envelope taped to my door. The color of bad news. Final notice in red block letters. I didn't even open it, just tossed it on the counter and cracked open a beer. That's when my phone buzzed. Group chat. Harmon Ayers Bank briefcase gemstone. I'd forgotten I was still in it. Roderick. Board just approved our merger with Axion. Projected valuation, 84.6M. Bottle with popping cork. Sterling. To Dad, the empire lives. Roderick. And to Dex, who taught us what not to do. 3 laughing emojis. I stare at the screen until the messages blurred, then power the phone off. You tell yourself their words don't hurt after a while, that you build a scar thick enough to stop the sting. But some things don't scar, they just sink deeper like rusted metal. The next morning, the restaurant was emptier than usual. I spent half the day wiping counters that were already clean. The few regulars who came in, old couples, college kids with laptops, smiled politely, unaware they were the only heartbeat left in the room. By evening, I decided to close early. As I locked the front door, a kid on a bike rolled past and called out, "You guys closing for good?" I didn't have an answer. That night, back in my apartment, I sat in the dark with a laptop in front of me. The screen reflected my face like a mirror I didn't want to look into. I remembered Dad's note, for the one who sees beyond numbers. Maybe he meant business numbers. Maybe it was a cruel joke. But maybe it was something else. I powered it on. The screen flickered, faint and old, like I hadn't seen light in years. Password prompt. Same as before. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed beyond numbers. Denied. I laughed at myself. Of course. Too poetic for him. I tried again. Legacy. Denied. Family. Denied. Dexter. Denied. I was about to shut it when a memory came back. My mother, years ago, slamming the door during one of their fights. Her voice cutting through the marble hallway. "You only see what you can count." And Dad shouting back, "That's what keeps us alive." I hesitated, then typed alive. Access denied. I sighed and closed it again. The truth was, I didn't care anymore. My father was gone. My brothers had won. And I had rent due in 5 days. So I made the most practical decision I could. I decided to sell it. It wasn't sentiment anymore. It was survival. After all, it was just an old laptop, a worthless piece of plastic from a man who never cared enough to see me. At least, that's what I thought. But the thing about worthless objects is, sometimes they're just waiting for the right eyes to see them. And mine were about to. I listed the laptop on an online marketplace the next morning. Just a short post, old Lenovo ThinkPad. Still boots up. Make an offer. It felt like I was selling a ghost. Within minutes, the offer started rolling in. $20. $30. A guy from 2 towns over-offered $50 if it came with a charger. Typical. Then came one that didn't fit. User. M Thatcher_47. Message. I'll pay $500 cash today. No questions asked. $500. For a 10-year-old ThinkPad. I stared at the message, half expecting a scam link to follow, but it didn't. Just that single line. And somehow, that made it worse. I replied, "Why so much for an old laptop?" A minute later, his response came through. "Because I know what it's worth." For a long time, I didn't move. Finally, I typed, "Me at the Cafe Paloma, 2 p.m. cash only." He replied with a single thumbs-up emoji. Cafe Paloma was half a mile from my apartment. One of those cozy corner spots with chipped mugs and sunlight that made you believe in better days. I got there early, laptop in hand, feeling like I was about to do something wrong. When he walked in, I knew right away that M Thatcher_47 wasn't some random tech collector. He was late 30s, maybe 40. Nervous energy in every step. He wore a wrinkled gray blazer and carried a messenger bag that looked like it'd seen more airports than sleep. His eyes, darting alive, locked onto the laptop before they even found me. "Dexter Harmon?" he asked. "Yeah." He sat down without waiting to be invited, dropped an envelope on the table. Thick, crisp edges. I didn't even have to open it to know it was all hundreds. "I'll take it," he said. I frowned. "You don't want to check it?" He smiled. "Not the kind that reaches your eyes, but the kind that hides something behind them. I already know what's on it." That stopped me cold. I tried to laugh it off. "You serious?" I couldn't even get past the password screen. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, most people wouldn't." The way he said it made me uneasy. He pulled the laptop closer, opened it, and waited. The screen came to life. Black background, white text, the same prompt. Enter password. He typed for a while. Fingers steady, like someone who'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Then he stopped and looked at me. "You don't know what this is, do you?" I shook my head. "Just my dad's old computer. He left it to me when he—" "I know who your father was," he said softly. "Data Vault Technologies. Real estate portfolio in Zurich. PAC funding to 5 senators under alias accounts. Ringing any bells?" I just stared at him. He smiled again, tighter this time. He wasn't just running a company, Dexter. He was running a system. The laptop beeped, a single sharp tone. The password field vanished. Desktop appeared, a black wallpaper. A single folder in the center. Project Phoenix. Milo's eyes flicked toward me. That's what they buried. He double-clicked. Inside were dozens of files, encrypted spreadsheets, PDF memos, internal emails. I caught glimpses of subject lines as they opened and closed like flashbulbs. Regulatory Adjustment Report, FDA Compliance. Offshore Allocations, Cayman Transfer 2019. Termination Risk Assessment, Palmer Family. Palmer Family. The name pulsed in my head. I didn't know why. Milo leaned in. "You might want to stop thinking of this as a laptop. It's more like a confession." I whispered, "Whose confession?" He turned the screen toward me, eyes unreadable. "Your father's. And maybe your brother's." The cafe noise faded around us. Coffee machines, chatter, silverware. Everything gone except the humming of that old ThinkPad. "What is Project Phoenix?" I asked. Milo exhaled, like he'd been holding the answer for years. "A cover-up. A big one. Data Vault's hardware division sold medical devices. Pacemakers, neural implants. Cheaper, faster, but untested. They knew there were failures. People died." He clicked through more files. Case numbers, settlements. Internal memos signed by names I recognized too well. Roderick Harmon. Sterling Harmon. And at the top of every digital signature line, my father's initials. JH. I felt sick. "They called it Project Phoenix," Milo continued, "because every time they burned down a product line, they'd rise again under a new subsidiary. Same tech, same flaws, new name. Nobody ever traced it back to Data Vault." My mouth was dry. "Why are you showing me this?" He looked me straight in the eye. "Because the people who died deserve more than silence. And because your family tried to erase this once. They'll try again." He shut the laptop gently, slid it across the table. You should probably hold on to it. I blinked. I thought you wanted to buy it. He smiled faintly. I just wanted to make sure it still existed. I looked down at the old ThinkPad, my fingers trembling on the lid. Who are you, really? He hesitated. Someone who lost his father because of that machine. He stood, gathered his bag, and dropped the envelope of cash beside me. Keep it. You're going to need it. And then he was gone. Through the window, I watched him disappear into the street, swallowed by the noise and sunlight, and everything ordinary that suddenly didn't feel ordinary anymore. I sat there for a long time, the laptop in front of me, the cash untouched. When I finally opened the lid again, one folder name kept pulling at me like a whisper. Termination Risk Assessment, Palmer Family. And for reasons I didn't understand yet, those words made my stomach twist. Because my mother's maiden name was Palmer. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just lay there staring at the ceiling while the laptop sat on the kitchen counter, humming softly like it was breathing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that folder name again. Termination Risk Assessment, Palmer Family. By 3 a.m., I gave up trying to rest. I poured myself stale coffee, sat down in front of the laptop, and opened it. The desktop was almost empty. No clutter, no programs, just a few encrypted folders and that one black wallpaper. It looked sterile, like whoever built it didn't want distraction, only control. I hovered the cursor over the Palmer file. My hand shook. When I opened it, a string of documents loaded, internal memos, payment logs, and a series of emails between executives. The earliest one was dated 4 years ago. It started simple enough. A risk report about a malfunction in one of DataVault's cardiac monitoring chips. The devices were supposed to detect heart irregularities remotely and transmit real-time data to hospitals. They didn't. According to the file, they sometimes sent false normals. Patients whose devices malfunctioned never received alerts. They died quietly, at least 23 of them. Scrolling further, I saw familiar signatures. My brothers, my father, their initials stamped across pages of silence money and legal maneuvers. Then one email stood out, from G. Harmon to S. Harmon R. Harmon. Subject, Palmer Disruption. Francine Palmer has been contacting reporters again. She's unstable, but she's getting close to the Phoenix Project link. Handle it. Discreetly. GH. My throat tightened. Francine Palmer, my mother. Handle it. Those 2 words made my skin crawl. I kept scrolling. The next attachment was a PDF. Transcript of calls, hospital reports, her psychiatric evaluation. My mother's name again and again, branded as emotionally erratic, unreliable, under medication. They had destroyed her credibility on paper. I remember being a teenager, watching her break down in the kitchen, screaming that Dad was hiding something and no one believed her. I remembered Roderick whispering that she needed help, and Sterling quietly arranging a facility in upstate New York. She wasn't crazy. She was right. Every page was another nail in that coffin they built for her sanity. Then came a spreadsheet labeled Phoenix Redistribution. It showed transfers, millions, moved through shell corporations, some offshore, some hidden behind charity fronts. Each payout connected to a senator, a regulator, a hospital board member. Bribes, cover-ups, settlements. And at the very end, a personal memo from my father himself. If Phoenix ever surfaces, neutralize all external liabilities. Family first. Always. My stomach turned. Family first. He'd said that 1,000 times when we were kids. He'd look us in the eye before boarding another private jet and say, "Everything I do is for family." Now I saw what that meant. Family first wasn't love. It was protection from exposure, not from harm. A sound broke my trance. The phone vibrating on the counter. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Seconds later, a voicemail. Then another call. This time, the caller ID made my pulse spike. Roderick Harmon. I stared at it until it stopped. Then Sterling called. Then again. I finally picked up on the 4th ring. Voice dry. "You two don't usually call me unless you're laughing." Roderick didn't waste time. Dexter, listen carefully. You still have Dad's laptop, right? I said nothing. Sterling's voice cut in. We need it back. Immediately. I laughed. You mean the one you laughed about at the reading? Yeah, I still have it. Roderick's tone hardened. Dex, this isn't a joke. You don't know what you're dealing with. Oh, I think I'm starting to. Silence. Then Sterling said, whatever you've opened, close it. You understand me? Don't go through those files. That was all I needed to hear. I hung up. A minute later, my phone buzzed with a text. Sterling, we'll wire you $2 million for the device. No questions. Walk away. $2 million. It was more money than I'd see in 10 lifetimes at Nona's table. For a moment, I actually considered it. Not because I wanted wealth, but because I wanted peace. To be done with all of it. The betrayal, the noise, the pain of knowing my family were monsters in tailored suits. But then I thought about the Palmer file again. My mother's name, reduced to liability. The 23 dead patients listed as acceptable losses. $2 million couldn't buy that silence. Not anymore. So I called the only person who might know what to do. Milo. He answered on the first ring. I was wondering when you'd call, he said. They offered me $2 million. I said. He didn't even sound surprised. That's how scared they are. You found the Phoenix files, didn't you? Yeah. Then you understand why you can't take the money. I hesitated. What do I do instead? There was a pause. Then, you expose them. I swallowed. And get myself killed? He sighed. If they wanted you dead, they'd have sent someone already. They're still hoping they can buy your silence. That's your window. Use it. I stare at the laptop screen. The folder open, evidence staring back at me like eyes. How? Meet me tomorrow, he said. Downtown. Federal building, second floor. Ask for Agent Rivera. FBI. Yeah, Milo said quietly. They've been chasing Phoenix for 3 years. You just found their missing piece. Before I could respond, he added, Dexter, you're not crazy for wanting to do the right thing. But once you start, you don't get to go back. Then he hung up. I sat there in a half-dark apartment, laptop glowing like a confession booth, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Outside, the city kept breathing, unaware that somewhere inside a tiny kitchen, the son no one believed was holding the secret that could destroy his entire family. I closed the laptop slowly and whispered to the empty room, Dad, what did you do? The next morning, I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not the impatient kind, the careful kind, the kind that already knows it's not welcome. I opened the door and froze. Mom, Francine Palmer. Though to the world, she'd stopped being that name years ago. To my brothers, she was an inconvenience, a stain on the family reputation. To me, she was the ghost I'd stopped trying to chase. She looked smaller than I remembered. Time and betrayal have a way of shrinking people. Her hair was silver now, her eyes softer but still carrying that sharp, watchful light that always made you feel seen, even when you didn't want to be. I heard from a friend that your brothers are panicking, she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. That only means one thing. You found it. She didn't even have to say what it was. I nodded slowly. The laptop. She smiled, bitter and tired. Your father always kept records. He thought control meant safety. He used to tell me, if you can prove everything, no one can touch you. But proof cuts both ways. I poured her coffee. The good kind, the one I'd been saving for guests I never had. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was full of everything we'd never said, everything she tried to warn me about. I thought you were crazy, I said finally. When I was a kid, when you talked about Dad lying, about cover-ups, I thought you just wanted to hurt him. She looked down into her coffee. He made sure you did. She set the cup down and reached into her purse. I want to show you something. It was a faded photograph. Her, standing in front of the old Dataval headquarters, holding a small folder. She was smiling, but her eyes weren't. This was the day I went public, she said. I gave everything I had to a journalist at the Herald. Documents, names, even one of the pacemaker prototypes. The story was supposed to break a week later. What happened? The journalist was found dead in a car accident 2 days before publication. My stomach dropped. Jesus. She nodded. After that, the FBI started sniffing around, but every lead went cold. And then your father made sure I did too. She looked at me then, really looked. He didn't just ruin me, Dexter. He rewrote me. He paid doctors to call me unstable, therapists to medicate me. He had me committed once. I thought I was losing my mind. Her voice trembled, but I never stopped remembering what I saw. Those people, they trusted your father's company, and he turned their faith into numbers on a balance sheet. I wanted to tell her it was over, that now we could finally make it right. But something in her face told me she already knew it wasn't that simple. She took my hand. They're going to come for you. The moment you show that evidence, they'll start pulling strings. They still have friends in every office, every court. You can't trust anyone. I'm meeting someone tomorrow, I said. An agent. Milo set up. He said the FBI has been after Phoenix for years. She nodded slowly. Then you need to be careful. If it's real, they'll try to silence it before it ever reaches a courtroom. She stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the street like she expected a black SUV to roll up any minute. When your father realized I couldn't be bought, he made sure I was broken instead, she said quietly. But he underestimated one thing. What's that? Her eyes met mine. You. For a second, I didn't know what to say. I'd spent my whole life believing I was a disappointment. The forgotten son, the outsider. But in her voice, there wasn't pity. There was pride. He left it to you for a reason, she said. Maybe guilt, maybe legacy. But he trusted that you'd see it differently, that you'd do what he couldn't. Which is what? She smiled sadly. Tell the truth. Outside, a car door slammed. Both our heads snapped toward the sound. Mom crossed the room, pulling back the curtain just enough to peek outside. A black sedan, parked across the street, engine running. She stepped back, her voice suddenly low. They already know. I closed the laptop, shoved it into my backpack. We need to move. She shook her head. No, they're watching you, not me. If I go, they'll follow. You take that evidence, Dexter. You take it to the agent. Don't look back. Mom. She grabbed my face, the way mothers do when they're memorizing their child for the last time. You can't save me from the past, but you can save what's left of our name. I wanted to tell her I wouldn't leave, that I'd protect her, but the truth was, she'd been protecting me my entire life. I nodded. I'll end it. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Then maybe this time, when people hear the name Harmon, it won't be for the wrong reasons. I turned for the door. As I stepped out, she whispered something, so soft I barely caught it. Don't let them rewrite you too. When I reached the sidewalk, the sedan's engine revved. I didn't look back. I just kept walking, one hand clutching the backpack, the other shaking. I could feel eyes on me, cold, patient eyes, as I disappeared around the corner. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just a forgotten son anymore. I was a threat. By the time I got back to my apartment, my hands were still trembling. The black sedan hadn't followed me around the corner, but that didn't mean anything. People like my brothers didn't need to chase you. They just waited for you to make a mistake. The backpack with the laptop felt heavier than it should have, like it knew it was more than metal and plastic now, like it knew it was leverage. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the note my father had left me, for the one who sees beyond numbers. I'd spent my whole life thinking that meant I wasn't enough. Maybe it meant I was the only one left who could see the cost of what he built. My phone buzzed. Milo, you ready? He asked. Ready for what? To end this. I swallowed hard. Tell me what to do. We met the next morning downtown, in a parking garage beneath the federal building. Milo didn't look like a man chasing justice. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in years. Same wrinkled blazer, same nervous energy, but now, a steel edge under it. Agent Rivera's waiting upstairs, he said. But before we go up, You need to decide something. What? Whether you're in or out. Once you hand this over, it's not just evidence anymore. It's a declaration. You'll be testifying. You'll be a target. They'll drag you through the press, through the courts. They'll make you look like me. A crank, a grifter, a bitter son trying to cash in. I stare at the backpack. What happens if I take the money instead? He didn't blink. Then more people die, and your father's empire keeps burning. My throat tightened. I don't want to be a martyr, Milo. Good, he said. Martyrs die. Whistleblowers live just long enough to make sure the truth does too. I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my chest. Okay, I said finally. I'm in. Agent Rivera didn't look like an agent. She looked like a teacher. Neat hair, tired eyes, cardigan instead of blazer. But her handshake was firm and her voice steady. Mr. Harmon, she said, sliding a legal pad onto the table. We've been hoping for something like this. I placed the laptop in front of her like an offering. She opened it, scrolled for a moment, then whistled low. My God! It's everything, Milo said quietly. Every cover-up, every payout, every offshore account. Rivera glanced up at me. You understand what happens next? I nodded. I testify. You take them down. She didn't smile. We'll try. But they're not just rich, Mr. Harmon. They're entrenched. This will be ugly. They'll come for you. They'll come for your mother. They'll come for anyone who helps you. I clenched my fists. I'm not scared of them anymore. That's good, she said. But be careful. Fear keeps you alive. We spent the next 2 hours copying the files, creating a secure chain of evidence. Rivera explained the sting operation, how they'd wire me for meeting with my brothers, how I'd hand over a decoy drive while confessing enough to trap them into admitting their crimes. Think of it like a boardroom, Milo said. You've sat in enough of those to know the script. Only this time, you're the one closing the deal. I nodded, tried to ignore the cold weight settling in my stomach. Rivera slid a small black device across the table. A wire, thin as dental floss, with a tiny mic no bigger than a pill. This goes under your shirt, she said. When you speak, keep your tone natural. If they offer you money again, refuse. Make them talk about Phoenix. Make them talk about the pacemaker flaw. We'll be listening. I stared at the wire. And if they realize... She didn't blink. Then we come in. That night, back at my apartment, I practiced what I'd say. In the bathroom mirror, I rehearsed lines like an actor. You think you can buy me. How many people died because of you? Family first, right? Each time I said the words, my reflection looked less like me and more like someone else. Someone harder. Someone who could stand in that boardroom without shaking. The phone buzzed again. Sterling. Sterling, meeting tomorrow. 10 a.m. top floor, Data Vault Tower. Come alone. I typed back. I'll be there. Bring the money. No reply. I shut the phone off, leaned against the sink, and closed my eyes. For the first time, I realized how much I hated them. Not just for what they'd done to strangers, but for what they'd done to Mom, for what they'd turned me into. I thought of her words before I left the apartment. Don't let them rewrite you too. I opened my eyes. I won't, I whispered. Then I picked up the wire, feeling how light it was. Almost weightless. It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like truth. And in the morning, I would walk into that tower not as a forgotten son, but as the one who could finally end it. The elevator ride up to the top floor of Data Vault Tower felt like a trip through my own past. Every chime of a passing floor was another ghost, another dinner I wasn't invited to, another year I spent being told I wasn't one of them. I could feel the wire taped under my shirt, every beat of my heart pressing against it. Agent Rivera's voice echoed in my head. Keep calm. Keep them talking. When the doors opened, the top floor was empty, too empty. A glass conference room sat in the center, blinds drawn halfway. The city sprawled out behind it like a painting, cold and bright. My brothers were already there, Roderick in a Navy suit, hands in his pockets, that same practice grin he wore at every investor call. Sterling beside him, in black, eyes sharp, jaw tight. They looked like they'd just stepped out of Forbes' cover shoot. Polished, dangerous, untouchable. Roderick smiled when he saw me. You actually came. I stepped inside, keeping my voice steady. You said 10. I'm on time. Sterling motioned to a chair at the far end of the table. Sit. I didn't move. You got the money? Roderick laughed softly. Still the same. Dex. Straight to the point. He reached into a drawer and slid a metal case across the glass table. When it clicked open, stacks of $100 bills gleamed under the light. 2 million. Clean. You take it, walk out that door, and this never happened. I stared at it, then at them, and Mom. Sterling's eyes narrowed. She's not part of this. She's a reason for all of this. Roderick sighed, running a hand through his perfect hair. Dex, we're not here to fight. You've always wanted a way out, and now you have it. Take the deal. Go back to your restaurant. Let this go. Let what go? I said, Phoenix. The word hit like a grenade. Both of them froze. Roderick's smile faded. Sterling looked toward the security cameras in the corner, then back at me. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I do, I said. The chip failures. The cover-ups. The 23 dead. The payoffs. I've seen it all. Roderick leaned forward, his tone sharpening. You don't understand the scale. That data isn't context, it's chaos. We saved thousands of lives with those chips. The failure rate was minimal. Minimal? I said, voice breaking. You killed people. You destroyed Mom to bury it. Sterling slammed his hand on the table. She was unstable. I stepped closer. You made her unstable. You paid doctors to fake her records. You turned her into a story no one would believe. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Roderick's voice dropped low. You think anyone's going to believe you over us? You're the outcast, the drunk cook, the son who quit. I didn't quit, I said quietly. I just stopped wanting to be like you. Sterling's eyes flicked to Roderick. He's recording. Roderick's smile was gone now. You wearing a wire, little brother? My heart froze. He stepped closer. Too close. Lift your shirt. I didn't move. Do it. He said again, softer this time, which somehow made it worse. I held my ground. You really want to assault me in your own office? Cameras rolling. Sterling gave a humorless laugh. Those cameras are ours. I glanced toward the corner again and realized he was right. The red lights were off. Roderick took another step forward. We didn't want this to get ugly, Dex. You could have taken the money and disappeared. Now, he reached into his jacket pocket. That's when the door burst open. FBI, hands where we can see them. Agent Rivera stormed in with 2 agents behind her, guns raised. Roderick froze mid-motion. The gun half drawn from his suit. Sterling's face drained of color. Roderick Harmon. Rivera said, voice cutting through the chaos. Sterling Harmon. You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and corporate manslaughter. I stumbled back as the agents cuffed him. Roderick looked at me over his shoulder, not angry, not shocked, but almost disappointed. You really think this makes you the hero, he said. You just destroyed everything Dad built. I met his gaze. No, you did. As they dragged him out, Sterling hissed. You think this ends here? You don't know what Dad was into. Phoenix was just the start. Then they were gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Rivera lowered her gun, exhaled. You did good, Dexter. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. I almost died. You did what your father never could, she said. You faced the truth. I nodded, but the room felt hollow, empty, like something had been cut out of me and left behind. On the table, the open case of money sat untouched, the last relic of her arrogance. I looked at it, then closed it, pushed it toward her. Evidence, I said. She smiled faintly. You really do see beyond numbers. As I stepped into the elevator, my reflection in the mirrored walls didn't look like the same man who'd walked in. The forgotten son was gone. What was left was someone his father would have never recognized. Someone who finally understood that justice wasn't clean or noble. It was survival. And sometimes survival meant burning down your own bloodline. The news broke before sunset. Every major network, every channel, every voice that once praised my family now chewed on their names like bitter fruit. Harmon brothers arrested in Data Vault scandal. Phoenix Project cover-up confirmed. Corporate titans fall. Their faces were everywhere. Roderick's arrogant smirk turned into a mugshot. Sterling's perfect posture broken beneath fluorescent booking lights. And then there was me, whistleblower Dexter Harmon, youngest son, exposed as company corruption. They said it like it was a miracle, like I was brave, like I hadn't spent the past week terrified out of my skin. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt hollow. Agent Rivera called me that night. "They're cooperating," she said. "Your brothers are flipping on the board members, the senators, the entire chain. We'll have indictments within a week." I sat in the dark, staring at the city skyline through my window. And my mother? We're arranging protection for her. New name, new home. She'll be safe. Safe. The word sounded fragile, like something that could crack if I believed in it too much. "What about me?" "You'll testify," she said. "Then you disappear for a while. Lay low. You've got friends in high places now, even if you don't want them." I almost laughed. High places are what got us here. She was silent for a moment. "You did the right thing, Dexter." "Yeah," I said softly. "So, why does it feel like it?" A few days later, I went back to Nona's table. The restaurant was still there, small, warm, alive. The smell of garlic and basil hit me like home. My staff looked at me like I just crawled out of a headline, which I guess I had. "Boss," Mario said, wiping his hands on a towel. "We saw the news. You okay?" I nodded. "I'm breathing." He laughed awkwardly. "You wanted to fire up the kitchen?" I looked around at the empty tables, the sunlight spilling across the worn wood, the quiet hum of normal life. "Yeah," I said. "Let's feed whoever's still hungry." We cooked. We cleaned. We opened the doors. By dinner service, the place was half full. Regulars, strangers, maybe a few people just curious to see the whistleblower chef. But when the plates started leaving the pass, the noise of laughter and forks and conversation began to drown out the ghosts in my head. For the first time in a long time, I felt human again. That night, after closing, I sat alone in the kitchen. The laptop, his laptop, sat on the counter. The FBI had copied everything, but they let me keep the shell. I opened it. The desktop was wiped clean now. Empty, except for one file. I clicked it. Inside, one line. "You finally saw it. I'm proud of you, Dad." I stared at it until my eyes blurred. Proud. That word landed harder than any bullet ever could. Was it real? Did he leave it there before he died? Or did someone plan it to mess with me? I didn't know, and I didn't care. I closed the lid. He'd spent his life building a world of numbers, of power, of control. And in the end, he'd left it all to the one son who didn't want any of it. Maybe that was his redemption. Or maybe it was his final test. Weeks passed. Trials began. The press moved on to newer scandals, newer villains. Mom started painting again. Small coastal town, quiet life. She sent me a photo once. Her smiling, standing by the sea, brush in hand. No fear in her eyes anymore. And me? I stayed where I was. In the kitchen, among fire and knives and noise that didn't lie. People sometimes asked if I missed the money, the luxury, the empire. I'd just shake my head. Because the truth was, I'd finally inherited something worth more. Peace. Still, every now and then, late at night when the restaurant's dark and the city sleeps, I think about Roderick and Sterling sitting in those prison cells. I wonder they finally understand what family first really meant. And sometimes I hear my father's voice, low, confident, cold, whispering from the corners of memory. If you can prove everything, no one can touch you. He was wrong. In the end, proof doesn't save you. It only shows who you really are. And me? I'm not the forgotten son anymore. I'm the one who remembered everything. It's been a year, 12 months, since the world watched the Harmon dynasty burn to ash. A year since I walked into that glass tower with a wire on my chest and my family's sins in my hands. The headlines are long gone now. The trials are over. Roderick got 20 years. Sterling, 15. Both pled down in exchange for testimony. Typical. Even when they fell, they made sure to land on a softer floor. The board dissolved. Data Vault was dismantled. Its patents sold to smaller firms. Its name scrubbed from every glossy plaque. But you can still find the ashes if you know where to look. The old HQ standing hollow on Fifth Avenue. Its logo faded but not gone, like a ghost that refuses to disappear. Sometimes I walk past it after closing the restaurant. I stand across the street, watching the empty windows reflect the city lights, and I swear I can almost hear my father's voice inside, giving another speech about vision, innovation, legacy. The same speech that once made me want to disappear. But not anymore. Now I just listen. Then I turn and walk away. Mom's doing better. She lives by the coast now, paints every day, feeds stray cats, drinks wine before noon, and laughs like the years never happened. The doctors say the stress is gone, like a fever that finally broke. She called me last week, said she had a dream about Dad, said he was sitting on a bench, staring at the ocean, not angry, not proud, just quiet. I think he was waiting for something, she told me. Maybe forgiveness, I said. She paused for a long time, then said, maybe we already gave it. As for me, I kept Nona's table open. Business is good. The regulars come not because of the headlines, but because the food still tastes like something real. On the wall, there's a framed newspaper clipping. Whistleblower chef exposes corporate empire. People point at it sometimes. I tell them it's just a story, because that's all it is now. A story, a reminder that the truth, once spoken, doesn't need a stage. It just needs to exist. Every morning before opening, I still turn on the old ThinkPad. Not because I need it anymore, but because sometimes when the screen lights up, I remember who I used to be, the son sitting in that cold office, humiliated and forgotten. The man who thought a broken laptop was an insult. Turns out it was the key to everything. People ask me if I ever regret it. Exposing my own blood, tearing down a legacy that could have made me rich. I tell them the same thing every time. I didn't destroy the family. I just stopped pretending it was one. Then I go back to work. Back to fire and knives and noise that doesn't lie. Because that's the thing about fire. Once it burns through, everything falls. What's left might be small, but it's real. And that's all I ever wanted. Tonight, as I close the restaurant and step outside, the city feels alive again. Rain starts to fall, light, cleansing, honest. Across the street, lightning flashes, and for a split second, I see my reflection in a dark window. Not the forgotten son, not the whistleblower, just me, Dexter Harmon. And for the first time, that feels like enough.